Welcome to Bunch Formation, your newest favorite college football show. I am Chris Vannini. He is David Ubben. We are happy to be joined by Colorado State head coach Jim Mora. David, before we started recording, we had to get his opinion on your bad coaching in the College Football 26 dynasty. He ultimately, I think, agreed with your decision, but you just didn't have the guys, right?
Basically,
That's just
but
such a cop out, David. I don't have the guys. That and you can't ever say that publicly.
well, at the end of the day, I'm just all about blaming my players. It's never my fault; it's their fault. So I'm good with it.
Happy to have Coach Mora here, now at Colorado State, formerly at UConn, formerly at UCLA, Atlanta Falcons. Long, winding career that we're going to get into. So happy to have him here. Jim, appreciate you being here.
Chris, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
First thing, you're a big outdoors guy. You have said you're going to scale 54 14,000-foot mountains in Colorado. Have you gotten started on that yet?
I'm off to a slow start, Chris. There's been a lot of things to do here just to get us organized and on track, heading in the right direction. And so I haven't had a chance, but I plan after we get done with spring ball in the middle of April, May, June, into July, I think I can knock off a few. I've got to find some people that know the paths a little bit better than I do. But no, I mean, my favorite thing to do in the world, honestly, besides be with my family and coach football, is to go uphill, whether it's hiking or mountain climbing or mountain biking or skinning. I just really get a kick, a thrill out of going uphill. And so to have that goal, there's 54, 14,000-foot peaks here, 14,000-foot peaks here in Colorado. To have that goal of being able to summit all of them is something that I'm really looking forward to.
I got an idea for you. People always talk about you don't have enough time to get to know transfer portal prospects. Next year, when the portal opens, maybe it's a little cold, but you take them up there and you see what they're made of in 12 hours, right? I think that's a good idea.
I won't do that, David, just like you shouldn't have played cover 2-man last night in the game. But no, but you know what? So when I was with the Seahawks and I was coaching the defensive backs there, and those guys, defensive backs have a little bit of athletic arrogance to them. And we had this mountain called Tiger Mountain. It was about 20 minutes away from our facility. And my friend Mark Pattison, who played in the NFL and has summited all, he climbed the 7 summits. He's done Everest. He's done them all. And so the DBs were just cackling. They were like, "Oh, we'd crush you." They thought I was some old man. And so I said, "Hey, you meet Mark and I at 6 a.m. there tomorrow morning, and we'll show you the way up." And so they jump out of all their cars. We jump out of our cars. And Mark and I decided we'd strap 5-pound ankle weights to each ankle and they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're just giving you guys a chance." And needless to say, they're sprint athletes. When you get older, you become more of an endurance athlete. So we taught them a little lesson in humility that old people still can accomplish some pretty good things.
It's that fast switch. You've been around a while. We've gotten to the point now where nobody calls you Jim Mora Jr. There's no Jim L. Mora. If you Google Jim Mora, your name comes up first. You have kind of carved your own legacy, but you weren't actually a junior, obviously, but with a name like that and all your dad's accomplishments, when you were a young coach, did you feel like I've got to kind of get out from under his shadow or you had something to prove when you entered the coaching profession?
I didn't. I really didn't. I felt like if I just did good work and represented, myself and our family name positively, that it didn't really matter. I mean, people were going to associate with me with my dad no matter what happened. Matter of fact, after I'd been in the NFL for 8 years and I was 32 years old, I went to work for my dad. Now, I wouldn't have done it before that because I wanted to gain credibility on my own. But at that point in time, I felt like at 8 years in the league, I'd coached the defensive backs. His defensive back job came open at New Orleans, and he offered me the job, and I took it. Now, I was nervous initially about it, the nepotism fact, and that I was working with him. And I think that actually was something that motivated me to be more prepared, not wanting to go into a room with the defensive backs and not be prepared, not feel like I was an expert. and I'll never forget my first meeting with the defensive backs at New Orleans, and just, I mean, really, cold sweats going in there, going, I have to prove myself to these guys that I can stand on my own, and I think it made me better.
And how is your dad
Go ahead.
doing? I mean, for younger listeners who may not remember, they may know him for the playoffs thing or diddly poo, but he was an NFL head coach for 15 years. He
15 years.
Turned 90 last year doing a 220-pound leg press. I saw that video.
Yeah.
How's he doing?
He's rolling. Both he and my mom are doing great. They live in the desert. My dad lifts weights 3 times a week, does his Peloton 3 times a week, plays golf 3 times a week, takes really
Wow.
good care of himself. My mom's ultra active. But yeah, that day was fun. So it was his 90th birthday. His 91st is coming up here in May. And he goes, "Hey, Jim," I was down there. Obviously, we were having just a little family celebration. He goes, "Hey, Jimmy, let's go lift weights." I'm like, "Okay, Dad, let's go lift weights." And he put me through it for an hour and a half. And he finished with that 225 pounds, 15 reps, 3 sets at age 90. And I knew that he was a tough dude, but that, even to me, who'd grown up with him, was really impressive. You just don't see that very often. And he's just been committed to his health and staying with it, both he and my mom, and it's really great to see. I think it's a great example for a lot of people, but especially me and my brothers, my brothers-in-laws and sisters, and especially our kids, his grandkids, to see their grandpa still achieving good things at that age.
The leg press, people, the muscle's going to get all the shine there, but let's not sleep on the joints. That's impressive at 90.
Yeah, he's taking really good care of himself, and I think my dad is the kind of guy that if something hurts, it doesn't matter. He's just going to push through it. I mean, that was his mentality. That was his mindset. You guys saw his personality, because you're a little bit older, but probably didn't see him even at his, most intense. He had some intense moments, but having worked with him, he was just about as disciplined a human being as I've ever been around. He was a Marine, and he's kind of carried that Marine attitude through his whole life.
And something some people don't realize, the famous playoffs press conference, that came after a loss against the 49ers. And who was on that 49ers staff, Jim?
I was the defensive coordinator. And yeah, Chris, you're right. Not a lot of people know that. They hear the playoffs. Well, I was the coordinator. We were in Indy playing them, and we got after them pretty good. I think we ended up with 3 interceptions. I think we might have had at least one, but maybe 2 defensive touchdowns. And you're seeing you're really excited because you won the game, but you're looking across the field and you know that it's agonizing for your father. And so there was some mixed emotions there. And coming off the field, I went over to him and said, "Hey, Dad, kind of tough one." But he had that look on his face, and I knew something was about to happen. I mean, I knew that he wasn't just going to let this one pass. We go in the locker room, and Steve Mariucci gives me the game ball, which was great. I appreciated Mooch doing that, but really I didn't want it. I think I left it in the locker. It's like, God, I'm so excited to win. This is what it's all about, but it's tough beating your dad. And then he did the old playoffs rant, and I think that overshadowed the fact that we played each other. But we actually competed each other in the NFL 3 times, and I'm happy to say that I was 2-1 against my old man.
There you go. We had Charles Huff on earlier, and he said he didn't want to get married when he was an assistant coach because of all the moving you have to do, jumping around. What was it like being a kid of a coach and having to move around and adjust and get used to new places?
At the time, it was tough. I was shy. Athletics were the thing that brought me, together with other people. But when it came to just socializing, I wasn't really great at it. So it was tough. But I think as I look back, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me because I had to adjust. I was forced to, adapt. I was forced to enter conversations that maybe were uncomfortable. I was forced to create relationships. I've been fortunate to hold on to a lot of those relationships. I'm back here in Colorado now, where I was from age 6 to 12, and I'm reconnecting with people that I grew up with on Judson Drive in Boulder, Colorado, when I was 10, 11 years old. So, I think about that a lot with my kids. They've had to move around a lot, and there were some really tough days for them, when they had to adjust. But I think it's built in them a resilience and an independence that I think is going to serve them well.
When did you know you wanted to be a coach? Did your dad tell you to do it, tell you not to do it. You walked on at Washington, eventually became a GA there for Don James. At what point in your life was coaching the thing you realized you wanted to do?
So my dad actually did, I don't say he discouraged me from coaching, but he warned me of, the lifestyle. It's tough, it's competitive, it's long hours. There's a lot of people outside of your element that are criticizing you, so you have to have a thick skin. So when I graduated, I was at University of Washington, played for Don James. As you said, I walked on, earned a scholarship, didn't play a lot, played special teams, lettered 4 years and all that. But, I never had any delusions that I was going to play professional. So I started to shift my focus. What do I want to do? And initially I thought I wanted to be in player personnel. And I was lucky, really, really lucky. Right out of college, after I was actually a student assistant, not a graduate assistant. The fall after I had to take an extra quarter to graduate, but I got a job with the Chargers, and it was in the spring of '83. And Don Coryell and Johnny Sanders, who was the GM at the time, hired me to come down and be what they called a staff assistant. So I was really the first kind of quality control coach. But I spent half of my time with a guy named Dave Adolph in player personnel and half of my time with the defensive coaches, thinking that I wanted to go the route of, player personnel, operations, management. But every day I got drawn a little bit more towards the coaching end of it. And then they fired Tom Bass and hired Dave Adolph as a coordinator. And Dave kind of brought me over to the defensive side. And from there, I just fell in love with the coaching aspect of it. I think the relationships with the players, the scheming, the competition on Sundays, all of those things really appealed to me.
Fast forward a little bit, you work your way up, you become the Atlanta Falcons head coach. You reach an NFC championship game. You're coaching Michael Vick kind of at the peak of his powers. He's on the cover of Madden. I don't know if you're familiar. He is maybe considered one of the greatest Madden players of all time. His character being able to run around as much as it's a cheat code. But in real life, what is the most impressive thing that you saw him do on a football field when you guys were together?
Athletically?
Yeah.
David, every single day he did something that just blew your mind athletically. His arm strength was unbelievable. His quickness and change of direction, acceleration were unbelievable. His ability to elude tackles, unbelievable. I think the most impressive things I ever saw him do in games were we were playing the Carolina Panthers my first year, 2004, and there's a fourth down play, and we have to win the game, and he scrambles all over and takes off from the 5-yard line and dives into the end zone, clearing the ground by about a quarter of an inch for us to win the game. And then we're playing the Saints the same year, and he does one of those corner dives into the end zone and holds out his hand and just gets the ball inside the pylon. So Mike
famous
was
shot,
amazing.
famous shot.
Just the guy was ridiculous. He was a hard worker in practice. He was well liked by his teammates. He and I still remain, in pretty close contact, and I would say, pretty close. He certainly went through some really tough times because of some of the decisions he made, but I think that he has done an amazing job of really showing people who he truly is. We forget how he grew up and the culture he grew up and some of the things that people did, and we judge him on the decisions that he made, which I guess that's, how we do things. But I hope people can now judge him on the things that he's been able to do since, the unfortunate incidents that he was involved in, because he's making now what I think is a real impact in the kids at Norfolk State's lives. He is a great example to them of not only what mistakes can do to your life, but how to, rehabilitate and how to respond to adversity and how to come back and really be true to who you are. I love Mike Vick. I love him to death.
Probably one of the best kind of rehabs we've ever seen from a player to really lean into what he did and not shy away from it and try to fix it, I guess. Like my wife is a dog trainer. She came up working in vets, and she has spoken very well about how much he has helped change the perception of a lot of that stuff and what you do. So it's really good to see. Let's go back to fall 2021. You are in the process of moving from California to Sun Valley. You're hunting, you're biking, you're fly fishing every day. You've gotten engaged. You're doing some TV work at the time. And that fall, Randy Edsall steps down at UConn, 2 games into the season. This has been the worst college football program by a mile at the FBS level. And you express interest in the job. What were you thinking at the time? I know your friends were saying that too. Like, what are you doing with this?
So Chris, was interesting. So I'd gone through a divorce. It was tough. My youngest son was 13, and he, I had opportunities to coach, but my son had said, "Hey, Dad, could you not coach until I finish high school?" And that hit me pretty hard. My son needed me, and even though I was in the process of living between Sun Valley and California, I was able to maintain a great connection to my kids. I have 4 kids, and so I had taken my son to school, dropped him off at college. It wasn't what I thought. I thought it was going to be a cry fest and, "Dad, please don't go." Instead, it was, "Hey, Dad, you can go now." So, but at the time he goes, "Hey, I think it's time for you to go back to coaching. It's time." My kid said that. "It's time for you to go coach again, Dad." And those jobs are like gold. College jobs they're precious. They're hard to get. And when the UConn job came open, it appealed to me for a couple of reasons. When I've been at ESPN, I've been on their campus and I'd seen their facilities, and I knew their facilities were really nice. I really liked David Benedict. I liked what he was about. I thought he did more with less than anyone that I'd ever seen. And I loved his personality, and I felt that he was committed to football. And then, you know what? It was a chance to get back in. And as I said earlier, I like going uphill, like the challenge of taking over a program that was really left for dead, that was about to maybe give up on itself. And I'm not saying they were, but there was a chance. I think they'd won 5 games in the previous 6 years, although they didn't play during the COVID year. That was a year of football they didn't play. And I just thought, you know what? Let's go do this. Like, let's go attack it. Let's go see what we can make of this. I had a lot of confidence in myself, and I don't mean that to sound arrogant. I just felt like it was something that I could get done given the support and with the right people around me. Was able to hire a tremendous staff of young people that have all gone on, and they're just making great strides in their career. And we did good things. I think they'd won, like I said, 5 or 6 games over the previous however many years. And in 4 years there, we won 27, went to 3 bowls, had back-to-back 9-win seasons, which they'd never done in the history of the school. We went 12-1 our last 13 games at home. Did really well against Power 4 teams. Last year, all 3 of our losses came in overtime on the road, so we were in it. We were highly competitive, and I'll tell you what, it was a really enjoyable experience for me. A lot of people.
You beat Duke too, right? ACC champ.
Yeah, we were the ACC champs last year. As a matter of fact, we're still waiting on our rings and the trophy and the bowl bid, but we called ourselves the ACC champs, and he's just really proud of a lot of people doing a lot of work to help that program get to where we were able to get it. And one of the fun things,
and sold out crowds too, like things they had, biggest crowd they had in like 15 years or something like that.
Yeah, we did pretty well, and that was a tough environment. Listen, UConn's a basketball school. It was, you win 19 national championships at this point, which is probably going to be more at the end of this year in men's and women's basketball. You're a basketball school, and proud of it. And I'm still a big fan of UConn basketball, men's and women's, and Danny and Gino and those people. But it was not easy for us to get people to the stadium because the stadium was off campus. So it was hard for our students to get there. But really proud of the fact that we were able to set some records with crowds. Or I don't know if we set records, but do pretty well with crowds. But the most important thing for me was our players graduated. We won a lot of games, and then they're having a chance to go on and attempt to play at the professional level. Skylar Bell and Joe Figliano did a great job this weekend at the Combine, and really, I thought, increased their stock through NFL evaluators. So a lot of great things came from that, but more important than anything was just the chance to get back in football and compete and show that I was a capable coach.
You mentioned the success that you guys had there. I mean, even getting to a bowl in year 1, the back-to-back 9-win seasons. A lot of people would have said that is not possible at UConn probably ever again, and you did it. What was that like to be able to have that kind of success when there were a lot of people saying that's just not something that's going to happen?
Yeah, most people said that, but we always believed, and we did it because we had a group of players and coaches and staff members and support people that weren't entitled, that were willing to really work for it. That they wanted to put in the work, worked at, in my opinion, a level of intensity that I'd not seen in football before, gave themselves to the team, were selfless, and it was, I would say it was somewhat rewarding, but I also expected it to happen based upon the type of people we had and the work that they did. It did not surprise me. Um, and yet, as much success as we had, it's not enough, and it doesn't feel complete. Winning 9 games is great, but until you're able to compete for a championship, it's just you're making progress. So I don't feel like we ever really got there. One of the tough things certainly was being independent, and not having a
Yeah.
conference to go play for a championship in that conference. But I love the way we left the program, and we went in there and it was struggling, and we left, and it should continue to flourish.
You told me in 2022, after reaching that first bowl game, you said, I didn't think I should have been fired at UCLA. I thought they made a mistake. I still think they made a mistake. How do you look back at your time there?
At UCLA or UConn?
Yes, UCLA.
Well, they made a mistake. It's been proven by their record since I left as compared to when I was there. And I kind of feel like I should just leave it at that, or else once again my mouth will get me in trouble.
Well,
but Chris, looking back,
yeah.
you know what? This is a tough business, and I don't know a coach that feels like he should have been fired. But yeah, I don't think I should have been fired, and I think that the record since I left proves that, and the success we had at UConn proves that. But it happened, and I'm one of those guys that even if I feel like I shouldn't have gotten fired, I'm always going to point the finger right here and say, what did I do wrong? Where did I fail? And I'll be honest with you, and anyone that's listening to this, and I've said this before, is, although I didn't feel like I deserved to be fired, I do believe, and I will admit that I took my eye off the ball a little bit. I was going through a tough time in my personal life. The most important thing to me at that point in time was my kids and their mental health and maintaining a connection to them. And it got away from me a little bit. So I don't blame anyone. Well, I blame one person, but I don't blame anyone else for firing me but myself. But I still don't think it should have happened.
I was going to say, because UCLA has not been very good since you left. A lot of in the Big Ten now, a lot of talk about their resources, and they're going to be moving out of the Rose Bowl to try to find some more money. What limitations did you come across there that are just kind of different about that place than maybe some other places?
I didn't know at the time because, I was coming from an NFL career, and it was really my first exposure to college football. So I felt like the support was good. We built a beautiful new facility on the backs of our success. We increased, I believe we had the highest increase in attendance of any school in the country between my second and third year. And to me, that was just a combination of a lot of people doing a lot of good things. So I didn't feel like there was any lack of support at all. Now since I've left there, I've been to other places where there's been different ways of supporting it. UCLA is, and I think Bob's going to do a great job. And I think they've got an AD in place. And I think they've got a president chancellor in place where they can do some really, really good things. And I pull for them, because I still worked there for 6 years and I wanted to stay there. I loved that school. I loved that community. I thought it was really special. The stadium issue is certainly an issue, and I learned that again being at UConn. When you want students to come to the games, but you're asking them to travel 30 minutes or an hour, that's really hard. Here at Colorado State, as I sit here right now, I look to my right, your left there, and I'm looking at our stadium, and we're right in the middle of campus. And last year, this team was 2-5 and had 16,000 students at games, which is just a product of having a stadium on campus and having a student body that feels involved in the success or even the failures of your football team. So I think that's always going to be a challenge at UCLA, but just my opinion, they've got the right head coach in place to do some great things, and I think they will. I really do. I think you'll see an increased commitment to football there.
The old adage in coaching is like there's two kinds of coaches who have been fired and coaches who are going to get fired. When it happens to you, do you ever really get over it when you feel like, oh, this didn't go the way I was hoping it would go?
No, you don't get over it. I can go back and I can tell you in detail, how I feel about every time I was fired. I know when I got fired in Atlanta, because I opened my mouth on a radio show with Hugh Millen, my college roommate, and I let my guard down. And it was stupid of me. And I damaged the brand, and Arthur Blank didn't like it. And he decided to make a change. And, Seattle, I kind of call that my internship. I only got 1 year there. But, when they fired Tim Ruskell, as a GM, I knew there was probably going to be a change made, even though it was year one and we'd improved our record only by a game. And I'll tell you what, it's hard to look back and not say they made the right decision, because they brought in Pete Carroll and look what they did. And I'm a Seahawks fan. I grew up in Seattle. I grew up a Seahawks fan. So if I want to look in the mirror and be honest, I say, hey, you know what? They made the right decision. They got rid of me and they brought in Pete Carroll and they won Super Bowls because of it. And they changed the trajectory of that franchise. We talked about UCLA, so I'm hoping it never happens again. That's the goal. The goal is to not get fired. The goal is to
One,
have,
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
There's one other funny UCLA question: Josh Rosen in the hot tub in the dorm. I still can't figure out how it happened. Like, it's such a college thing, and it's one of those like college legends that kind of lives on. But what do you remember about finding out about that, and what was your reaction to how that even happened?
College kids do silly things at times, and part of the thing that you're responsible for is trying to educate them as they, work through some of the decisions that maybe are not great career decisions for them, or don't necessarily put them in the best light in public. So with Josh, it was early in his career, and it was just, hey, Josh, that's not the image that you want to portray as a quarterback at UCLA. Let's think long term. Let's not think short term. Let's think twice and act once. Let's make sure we protect the team. Let's make sure we protect your image. Let's make sure we're doing the right things. And Josh complied, because Josh is a very smart young man, very smart man now. So, but it was, you know what? It's like this. You're a coach, but you're a dad too. And I think as parents, sometimes when your kids do something, half of you is angry at them, and half of you cannot hardly keep from laughing. And it was kind of the same thing. Half of you is like, oh my God, that was brilliant. And half of you is just going, that's just the stupidest thing that I've ever seen done. And so how do you rectify those two feelings? And, the thing is to make sure that you create a learning opportunity for the student athlete, in that case, Josh. And I would say that Josh learned from it, without us just beating him down and pounding him into the ground like, you dummy, you what the hell are you thinking? It's more, let's learn from this, Josh. Let's think of the long-term ramifications of your decisions.
Mm-hmm. There's the list of coaches who've had success in the NFL and in college is pretty short. But your NFL head coaching experience, how has that helped you in the modern game of college football, where so much has changed? Obviously, the rosters are more transient than ever. What are the things that you've taken from your NFL experience that have helped you succeed in college?
That's a great question, David. I've just embraced the change because it's something that I'm used to. Now there's some differences between college and pros. Even revenue share you could equate to the salary cap. Free agency you could equate to the portal. College recruiting you could equate to the draft, but they're not exactly the same. But they're similar enough that I'm comfortable working in this environment. There's some coaches you've seen that have moved on from college because they don't like the way that it works. The difference between the pros and college is in the pros, as a coach, you really don't have to deal with that stuff. Your general manager, your president, your director of player personnel, they're kind of dealing with a lot of that. In college, the buck typically stops with the head coach. Even if you have a general manager, the head coach is, the guy that is ultimately in charge. So there's a little more stress, but I actually enjoy it. I really like it. I like dealing with the issues that it brings up. I like the responsibility of it. I think that spending 28 years in the NFL certainly prepared me for this type of environment, and I think it's been an advantage to us at UConn and certainly here at CSU. Finding a way to find the hidden gems that are out there, like we had to do in free agency. In the draft, as you relate to high school recruiting, traits. Maybe we're going to draft 32nd because we had a really good year the year before. Well, we're not going to get the quality of player that the guy in position 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is going to get, but how do we get the guy that fits us perfectly from a culture standpoint and a talent standpoint? So there's a lot of transferables between what we did in the pros and what we're doing now in college football.
Colorado State now. What stuck out about this job? Why was this the place for you to go next?
Well, Chris, I appreciate you asking that. So a couple things. Boy, I mean, there's a lot of things actually. Number one, I felt a real alignment here between the president, the athletic director, the deputy athletic director, Scott Sidwell, who I've known since he was born. So for over 50 years, my dad and his dad worked together forever.
Wow.
That was really important to me. You look at our president, Amy Parsons, and our AD, John Weber, they both went to school here. Then they both moved away from here. Then they came back because they had a passion for Fort Collins and a passion for CSU. And they understand that there's an enrollment cliff coming where it's going to be harder to get people to enroll in college. They also recognize that a strong football program is your best avenue for marketing your university. And so there's a commitment there to be really good at football. And I love that. I love having a stadium on campus. I love being in a community that is football centric. I mean, they love football here. I've been in Atlanta. I mean, I've been in a lot of places, as you know. The only place that really compares to it is Atlanta in terms of just this passion for football. Down south, as you guys know, it's different. Well, Fort Collins is a football town. Everywhere I go, people are just wishing you good luck and coming up and wanting to talk. And it's not they're awestruck or, oh my God, it's the head coach. It's like they just really genuinely want to tell you how much it means to them that their football team is successful and how much support they're going to give you. And that's great. Now, I realize we're undefeated, so it's pretty easy right now. We would lose a couple, all that might change, but hopefully we don't lose a couple. The other thing is, I'm from the West. I lived in Colorado as a kid, have a place in Idaho, as you guys mentioned earlier. Spent a lot of my life in Southern California, so I'm in an area of the country that I feel very familiar with and very comfortable in. And just very happy. Like the people here. I think we have a chance in the new Pac-12, which I've been a part of the Pac conference since it was the Pac-8. My dad coached in the Pac-8. I played in the Pac-10. I coached in the Pac-12. Now I'm back in the Pac-12. So, this is kind of feels like home to me. So it's exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, what do you think of the new league and its new membership and just the way it's set up?
Well, it's evolving. It's certainly evolving, as we know. I mean, we really haven't had a competition yet, but I like the leadership. I like the vision. I like the brand. I think that the Pac-12 has a brand. I don't think it's as strong as it can be back east. I worked at ESPN, and so being a West Coast guy that always felt that there was an East Coast bias, I understand it now because the games are coming on so late. ESPN was kind of clearing out when the Pac-12 games were coming on just because you can't, people couldn't work around the clock on a Saturday. It was just impossible to get everything done. So I think the challenge of trying to become relevant is exciting to me, but I think there's a plan for doing it. Merton Hanks is involved with this conference, and I got to coach Merton at San Francisco. So there's familiarity there, but I think it's, I know that the people in charge are very competent and the plan is put together well, and how it evolves and how it changes and adjusts, we'll see. But there's good people involved, and that's the first thing that you have to have.
What do you think about the late flex week? That was an interesting wrinkle in the scheduling.
Well, it is a wrinkle. I've never seen it. It's almost like, it's different, but I understand why they're doing it. And I think as long as we have a couple weeks to prepare, then we're okay. And I'll tell you what, coaches are adjustable. Even if they gave us 2 or 3 days to prepare, we'd be okay. It wouldn't be ideal, but we'd be okay. I think it's an interesting concept, and I think it's well thought out in the fact that you don't want to play a team 3 times in a season. And potentially that could happen given the fact that we have the playoffs. So trying to structure it in a way that you don't play a team 3 times, I think is smart. I think it's a positive. But it's new. And you know what? We'll see where it goes. Hopefully it goes well.
Colorado State, it's always kind of been described as kind of a sleeping giant at the group of 6 level. I mean, the facilities are incredible. You got that stadium that's still pretty new. The indoor, everything's really good there. They love football. The crowds, despite the team not being very good that last year, the crowds were good. what is it? What will it take to kind of get Colorado State to its potential?
Good people that are good coaches, good players, and good support staff, working like freaking crazy, being selfless and unentitled, embracing the hard work that it takes to be good, fighting through adversity that is inevitable when you're trying to achieve at a high level, staying positive, supporting each other, winning close games, managing close games, being smarter than the team we play, taking care of the football, not giving the football, taking the ball away. Cliche after cliche after cliche after cliche is what it's going to take. But it starts with the people, having a good staff, coaching staff, support staff, development staff that's out, trying to raise money, an AD, a president that are alignment. And then having players that just, they're dog tough, man. They're hard, tough-minded people that are not entitled and love to give to the team, and they're smart football players and they're unselfish. And listen, we haven't had a spring ball yet. We start on Sunday, our first spring practice, but we've been around these guys, been able to watch them work, and I'm very encouraged right now.
What do you think
All
of
right,
those
Coach.
facilities? Well, hold on. What do you think of those facilities that you're in
They're
and that you've
beautiful.
now seen?
They're spectacular. I can go up to the top of the stadium steps and I can watch the sunset over Long's Peak, which is a 14,600-foot peak, which is just gorgeous. And, for a guy that loves the mountains, that's kind of heaven. I can sit right here, like I said, and I'm looking out at our field and our weight room, our locker room, our training rooms, our meal rooms, our players' lounge. The facilities that the players get to utilize they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Our players are able to live off campus 100 yards from where they train every day, so they can go live in a really beautiful apartment with rooftop pools and jacuzzis, game rooms, and yet they're only 100. You might want to come back to school, but they're only 100 yards from 100 yards from where they work out. Our academic support's amazing. It's just, there are always challenges. No matter where you go, there's always challenges, but the challenges here are recognized and everybody is working towards overcoming those challenges. They're not ignored and people aren't avoiding them and people aren't saying we can't do this. People are saying, how do we do this? And that is really a great environment to be in. And I'm not saying it wasn't like that at other places, because it was, but it's the same here. Or, I guess because it's fresh. It's fresh and maybe it feels a little bit different.
Jacuzzi on the roof is a lot better than in the dorm too. So
yes, it is. Josh would have. He wouldn't have gotten in trouble if he'd have been here. It would have been okay.
And Long's Peak, Coach, keep a slot open on the portal visit schedule for next December. We'll see.
I could get in a little trouble for that one, but you got to look at it this way, David. If you take an endurance athlete up there, that's probably good. But endurance athletes aren't the greatest football players, because you want burst athletes. All right. And if I'm taking a 300-pounder up there, that's not going to work.
All right, Coach, we got some rapid fire questions for you to close. Last TV show that you binged?
Landman.
Okay, can we get a review?
Well, Allie Larder is actually a neighbor in Sun Valley, so I've gotten to know her a little bit, which is awesome. And her husband is just freaking amazing guy. So, yeah, I'm into that. My wife and I are into the Landman right now.
You got to get Cody Campbell on campus, Coach. And
yeah.
The food that you eat the most often?
The food, ice cream, unfortunately. Chocolate or strawberry ice cream. Every day I could eat it. Yeah.
Okay. The last book that you read?
I'm back to reading a Bill Walsh book called The Score Takes Care of Itself. I had to remember the title. So Bill was a huge influence in my life in coaching. And so every chance I get to revisit his lessons, I do.
Biggest pet peeve?
People that don't give their best.
I hear you. I'm gonna tell my DBs that on my team.
You don't have to be. Look, David, you don't have to be the best, but you can be your best every day.
That's true. There you go. Your favorite vacation spot?
Sun Valley, Idaho. Even though I consider it home, it's still my favorite vacation spot.
And who's the best football player of all time?
Tom Brady.
Okay.
Can make
the
that
rings
case.
prove it. The rings prove it, in my opinion.
And I got one last one. A situation here. You're up by 7, 20 seconds left on defense. They're at their own 10. David Ubben's your defensive coordinator. What are you calling?
Well, I know that he said now a couple times he doesn't have a lot of confidence in his DBs.
Mhm.
So I'm going to tell you what we're going to do, David. We're going to bring 8 people, all right, with a peel blitz. All right.
All right.
So we have one
Now
more
you're
than
talking.
they can block, and we are just going to bet that we can get there before they can get off an accurate throw. So we're either going to win big or look really stupid because we're going to overtime because it's a 90-yard touchdown against us.
I like it. I like it.
You
I
do?
like it.
You need to try that next time in the game.
It's a lot of stuff went wrong, but we'll that's neither here nor there.
You're just like a coach, man. You're still reliving it. Eating you
Coach,
alive. I love it.
Coach, appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us. Good luck this spring and this season.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, David. Appreciate you guys very much for having me.
Appreciate it.
All right.